Avery Monroe entered her wedding suite expecting to begin a new life, but by sunrise her husband had vanished. His blood was on the balcony, and every record proving he existed had disappeared with him. The ceremony had taken place at a cliffside resort in Big Sur, where redwood-covered hills descended toward the Pacific and ocean mist drifted across glass terraces filled with white roses. Avery had photographed beautiful places across the world, yet nothing had prepared her for the sight of the coastline glowing beneath the late afternoon sun. She had built her career and independence carefully. Her father's unexplained disappearance during her childhood had taught her never to rely completely on anyone. Ronan Vale had been the exception. He entered her life 18 months earlier as a private investor with understated wealth, intense gray eyes, and a calmness that made crowded rooms feel quieter. Unlike the arrogant men in Avery's social circle, Ronan never treated her career as decorative or her caution as something to overcome. Around him, she felt safe. Her mother, Victoria Monroe, never shared that confidence. Ronan's background appeared polished but strangely limited. His business history contained missing years. His family records were difficult to verify, and almost no one from his past attended the wedding. The ceremony remained elegant and intimate, but Ronan had arranged unusually strict security. Selected guests passed through private checkpoints. Unfamiliar guards monitored the terraces, and several men watched the resort from distant cliffs. Mason Creed, Ronan's closest friend, repeatedly checked exits while pretending to enjoy the celebration. Ronan also received silent messages throughout the evening. Each time, his expression tightened before he returned his attention to Avery. She assumed he was nervous. After the reception, they entered a private honeymoon suite overlooking the ocean. Ronan remained affectionate, but his focus kept shifting toward the road below the resort. Headlights moved through the fog, disappeared behind the trees, then returned several minutes later. Sometime after midnight, Avery fell asleep beside him. She woke before sunrise to cold air moving across the room. The balcony doors stood open. Ronan was gone. His broken watch rested near the railing beside several drops of blood and the wedding ring he had worn only hours earlier. Resort security discovered that every camera covering the suite, hallways, parking area, and private road had been erased. Staff records contained no officially registered guest named Ronan Vale. By morning, his phone number had been disconnected. His company website vanished. His banking records, home address, and professional profiles became inaccessible as though they had never existed. Police suggested that Ronan had created a false identity and staged the disappearance. Victoria urged Avery to accept that she had married a calculated con artist. Avery refused. The blood, the erased footage, and the abandoned ring suggested something more dangerous than abandonment. The man she trusted had erased himself so completely that the world began treating their marriage as something she had imagined. Before leaving the resort, Avery searched Ronan's tuxedo jacket and found a small brass key sewn inside the lining. It opened a private locker at a coastal train station. Inside was a passport bearing Ronan's photograph, but the name belonged to the missing heir of one of America's most feared criminal families. Avery had married Ronan Vale, but the passport in her hands claimed her husband was actually Ronan Devereux, the presumed dead heir to a criminal empire stretching across 3 states. The locker contained more than a passport: a folded train schedule, an old property deed, and a handwritten Nevada address pointed toward a mountain town near Lake Tahoe. Avery traveled there alone. Snow covered the pine forest rooftops and winding roads surrounding the frozen lake. The town looked peaceful enough to belong on a winter postcard. Yet every answer Avery found made Ronan's secret life appear more dangerous. Public records connected the Devereux family to casinos, shipping companies, private security firms, and luxury developments. Older investigations suggested those businesses also concealed illegal financial networks and criminal routes extending across several states. Ronan Devereux had been declared dead 7 years earlier. According to newspaper archives, an attack on a private family estate killed his father and several senior associates. Ronan's body was never clearly identified, but the organization treated him as another victim. Afterward, his Aunt Celeste Devereux assumed control. Avery gradually understood that Ronan Vale had not been born from an ordinary desire for privacy. His identity had been carefully manufactured after he escaped the Underworld. The Nevada address led her to a secluded lodge overlooking the frozen lake. Mason Creed opened the door. At first, he claimed he had never met Avery or Ronan. His expression remained calm, but Avery recognized him from the wedding. He had checked every entrance, watched every unfamiliar guest, and disappeared before Ronan vanished. When Avery showed him the passport, Mason stopped pretending. He confirmed that Ronan had lived outside the Devereux organization for years under the name Veil. Ronan had intended to remain gone permanently, build legitimate businesses, and keep Avery separated from everything connected to his family. The wedding destroyed that plan. Celeste discovered that Ronan was alive and legally married. An old family trust gave Ronan's lawful wife potential control over several legitimate Devereux companies if he died. Avery had unknowingly become both an heir and a threat. Mason revealed that armed men arrived near the Big Sur resort during the wedding night. Ronan left voluntarily to draw them away from Avery. The blood on the balcony came from an injury sustained while escaping along the cliffs. He erased his records because any legal connection between them could lead Celeste directly to her. Avery understood that his disappearance may have saved her from immediate abduction. That knowledge did not lessen her anger. Ronan had chosen secrecy over trust. Every act of protection also proved that their marriage had been built on a truth he never intended to share. Mason warned her that Ronan had returned to challenge Celeste's control of the organization. He refused to reveal the location, insisting Avery's presence would create another weakness. While searching the lodge, Avery found a recent photograph hidden inside a financial file. It showed Ronan standing outside a grand casino complex beside the Mississippi River. The image was dated 3 days earlier. Ronan was not hiding from the Underworld. He was standing at its center, while powerful men lowered their heads to him. Word count, 569 words. Avery crossed the country searching for the husband who abandoned her, only to find him ruling a criminal empire from a palace of glass above the Mississippi River. New Orleans welcomed her with iron balconies, crowded historic streets, riverboats, and glowing waterfront buildings reflected across the dark water. Beneath the beauty, the city carried the same feeling as Ronan's hidden life. Elegant on the surface and dangerous underneath, Avery entered the Devereux Casino during a high-profile charity gala, using her professional credentials as a travel photographer. The complex included luxury hotel towers, private restaurants, theaters, and gaming floors, but discreet security doors suggested another operation existed behind the public spectacle. She found Ronan beneath a massive crystal chandelier. He wore a perfectly tailored black tuxedo and stood surrounded by casino executives, political donors, security leaders, and men whose reputations rarely appeared in legitimate newspapers. His posture was calm, but the room seemed to move according to his attention. The gentle investor Avery had married was gone. In his place stood a man powerful figures treated like a king. Ronan recognized her immediately. For one brief moment, his control fractured. Then his expression became unreadable, and he continued the conversation without approaching her. Celeste Devereux noticed the exchange. She welcomed Avery with polished elegance, presenting herself as a respected businesswoman rather than the ruler of a criminal organization. Her courtesy carried carefully hidden contempt. She treated Avery as an uninformed outsider who had accidentally married into a world beyond her understanding. Several wealthy guests followed Celeste's example. They questioned Avery's background, career, and place beside Ronan, regarding her as a temporary mistake rather than his lawful wife. Avery refused to retreat. Ronan eventually guided her into a private rooftop garden overlooking the Mississippi. Away from the gala, his authority gave way to visible tension. Avery learned that he had returned to power because Celeste's political protection made her impossible to challenge from outside the organization. By reclaiming his family name, Ronan had taken control of several casino, security, and shipping divisions, weakening Celeste's ability to reach Avery. He still wanted Avery to leave New Orleans immediately. A leadership conflict was approaching, and Ronan believed distance remained the only protection he could offer her. Avery saw the contradiction clearly. He claimed every lie had been intended to protect her, yet each decision had taken away her freedom to understand the danger and choose her own response. Finding him had not restored their marriage. It had revealed how little control she had ever possessed inside it. Mason reached Avery privately before she could leave. He warned her that Ronan's authority, was less secure than it appeared. Damon Vale, Ronan's younger half-brother, had been gathering support among ambitious leaders who resented Ronan's return. Evidence also suggested Damon had helped Celeste locate the Big Sur wedding. Ronan planned to expose him during a gathering at a remote desert estate. Before Avery could process the warning, alarms sounded throughout the casino. Security doors locked, elevators stopped, and armed officers sealed the gala floor. Investigators discovered a concealed weapon and forged security credentials inside Avery's photography equipment, along with evidence suggesting she had entered the building to assassinate Celeste. Avery had finally found her husband, but standing beside him had made her more vulnerable than being abandoned by him. As security officers surrounded Avery, Ronan was forced to choose between publicly defending his wife and revealing that she was the only person powerful enough to destroy his claim to the empire. Avery entered New Orleans as Ronan's abandoned bride, but she left the casino accused of plotting murder against a woman who controlled his family. Ronan stopped the arrest before security could remove her from the gala floor. He invoked his authority over the Devereaux organization and ordered the evidence transferred into his custody. The decision protected Avery, but also created immediate suspicion. Several senior leaders believed Ronan's marriage had weakened his judgment. Others saw Avery as proof that he could be manipulated through emotion. Before sunrise, Ronan's security team transported her to a remote estate in Arizona. The property stood between Red Rock canyons, open desert, and miles of empty road. Its glass walls and pale stone terraces appeared beautiful against the landscape, but isolation made the estate feel more like a fortress. Ronan and Avery barely spoke during the journey. He remained focused on security reports, while Avery watched the desert pass outside the window and considered how easily he continued making decisions for her. At the estate, investigators confirmed that the weapon and forged credentials had been planted inside her photography equipment. Whoever framed her had access to both the casino security system and the arrangements surrounding the Big Sur wedding. Mason suspected Damon. Ronan refused to accuse his half-brother without proof. Damon had gained support among younger leaders, and a direct accusation could divide the organization before Ronan secured control. Avery refused to remain a protected observer. She reviewed every photograph she had taken during the charity gala. Her professional attention to reflections, angles, and background movement revealed something the security team had missed. In the reflection of a mirrored column, Damon was meeting privately with one of Celeste's senior security officers. The discovery changed Ronan's view of Avery. Her intelligence made her useful inside the investigation, but it also made her more dangerous to the people protecting the conspiracy. Powerful Devereaux leaders soon arrived at the estate to decide whether Ronan should permanently replace Celeste. Several older men openly questioned Avery's presence. They dismissed her because she came from outside their family, their traditions, and their criminal world. Some treated her career as insignificant and assumed she had married Ronan for wealth. Avery refused to become a silent decoration beside him. While reviewing the organization's financial records, she uncovered payments connecting Celeste and Damon to rival groups responsible for recent attacks. The transfer suggested they had created instability deliberately, forcing Ronan to return and expose himself. Ronan then admitted that his father's death may have been part of the same conspiracy. Avery finally understood that he had not returned only to protect her. Their wedding had revealed the people who murdered his father, and Ronan had gone back to finish a war he had escaped years earlier. As the meeting continued, a violent sandstorm struck the estate. Dust covered the windows, communications failed, and visibility disappeared beyond the gates. During the confusion, Mason vanished with the financial evidence. Ronan believed his closest friend had betrayed him. The more Avery learned about the Devereaux world, the more she understood that loyalty inside the empire was measured not by love, but by how much betrayal a person could survive. When the storm cleared, Avery found Mason's abandoned vehicle near the canyon, and inside it was evidence proving Ronan had known about the wedding night attack before their ceremony began. Avery believed Ronan disappeared because danger found him on their wedding night, but the evidence revealed that he had expected the attack before she ever walked toward him. She left the desert estate before Ronan discovered what she had taken from Mason's abandoned vehicle. The files led her north to a secluded lodge hidden among ancient redwoods, where mist drifted between towering trees and narrow roads disappeared beneath dense green shadows. The property had once served as one of Ronan's emergency locations. Inside, Avery found encrypted drives, financial ledgers, and recorded security reports prepared before the Big Sur ceremony. One report confirmed that Ronan had received credible warnings about an attack 3 days before the wedding. He had refused to cancel it. Completing the marriage activated legal protections around several Devereux companies and blocked Celeste from transferring valuable assets to Damon. Avery had believed she was entering a marriage. Ronan had also been completing a strategic defense. The realization wounded her more deeply than his disappearance. Ronan arrived before she could copy every file. He did not deny what she had discovered. He admitted that he understood how their marriage would alter the balance of power and chose to proceed despite the danger. His love for Avery had been real. So had the calculation. Ronan claimed that he intended to reveal everything after the ceremony, once the legal protections were secured, and Avery could no longer be quietly removed from his life. The attack began before he had the opportunity. Avery could not know whether that promise had ever existed outside his guilt. Genuine love did not erase the fact that he had used her future without her consent. He had trusted her with his affection, but not with the truth that shaped every part of their marriage. Mason appeared at the lodge before Ronan could persuade her to return. He explained that he had taken financial evidence during the sandstorm because Damon's men were searching for it. Mason had not betrayed Ronan, but he refused to protect the lies surrounding the wedding. He confirmed that Ronan had ignored repeated advice to postpone the ceremony. Avery decided that she would not return simply because Ronan described his deception as protection. She demanded access to every legal, corporate, and financial record connected to her marriage. The documents revealed something neither Celeste nor Damon expected her to understand. As Ronan's lawful wife, Avery held decisive voting rights in the legitimate Devereux companies. Celeste needed her authorization to complete a transfer that would place those assets under Damon's control. Avery also recognized why Celeste had framed her at the casino. If Avery died, the rights would return to Ronan, where they could be manipulated through the leadership conflict. Damon arrived at the lodge pretending to offer protection. His concern appeared convincing until he placed transferred documents in front of Avery. He spoke more about signatures, ownership, and security than about the attempt on her life. Avery allowed him to believe she was frightened enough to cooperate. Ronan had loved her enough to risk his life for her, but not enough to trust her before turning her into a piece on his board. Avery signed the documents Damon brought, but secretly changed one clause that transferred control of the empire to herself instead of him. Every powerful man in the Devereux organization believed Avery was a frightened, abandoned bride until her signature placed their entire legal empire under her control. Damon escorted her to a glass-walled mountain estate above Aspen, where snow-covered peaks surrounded heated terraces, stone fireplaces, and private conference rooms built for people accustomed to making decisions beyond public scrutiny. He appeared confident throughout the journey. Damon believed Avery had transferred her voting rights to him. He expected a final leadership meeting to confirm his rise before Celeste or Ronan could interfere. Ronan arrived separately after realizing Avery had entered the confrontation by choice. He found her seated at the center of the conference room, while senior Devereux leaders gathered around a long glass table. Celeste watched on the opposite end, composed but visibly suspicious. When Damon presented the signed documents, Avery revealed the altered clause. The transfer had not placed control in Damon's hands. It had transferred temporary authority over the legitimate Devereux companies to Avery. Shock moved through the room. Men who had dismissed her as inexperienced suddenly understood that she had used their own legal structure against them. Celeste immediately challenged the transfer by claiming Avery's marriage was invalid because Ronan had entered under a false identity. Avery produced certified marriage records Ronan had preserved through private legal channels. She then presented financial transfers connecting Celeste and Damon to the attack at Big Sur, the casino framing, and payments made to rival groups. Damon turned against Celeste to protect himself. Celeste responded by exposing his role in arranging the wedding night attack. She claimed, however, that Ronan's father had been killed by someone much closer to him. Suspicion shifted toward Mason. Ronan wanted to move Avery away from the meeting before the organization turned violent, but he finally recognized that protecting her could no longer mean removing her from decisions affecting her life. Avery refused to rule through fear. Using her temporary authority, she froze suspicious accounts, suspended corrupt executives, and blocked transfers connected to both Celeste and Damon. Her actions weakened them without creating the bloodshed many leaders expected. For the first time, Ronan understood that Avery had never needed a stronger cage. She had needed the truth and the freedom to act on it. Mason arrived during the worsening snowfall, carrying additional records. The evidence proved Damon had arranged the murder of Ronan's father and manipulated security reports to redirect suspicion. Damon fled the meeting before security could detain him. Celeste privately offered Avery an alliance in exchange for abandoning Ronan. Avery rejected it, but Celeste's confidence suggested another secret remained hidden. Inside a sealed file recovered from Damon's accounts, Avery found her answer. Ronan's father had planned to dismantle the criminal empire before his death. He had intended to separate the legal companies, expose corrupt partners, and transfer money to families harmed by the organization. Ronan had returned believing he was reclaiming his father's throne. Instead, he discovered that his father had died trying to destroy it. Before Avery could reveal the file to the assembled leaders, Damon escaped with Ronan and disappeared into the snow-covered mountains. Avery had gained control of the Devereaux Empire, but Damon now held the one person she could not protect with legal documents or money. Using private aviation records, fuel purchases, and hidden financial transfers, she traced Damon's escape from Colorado to an isolated estate in the middle of a mountain lake in Montana. The island had once served as the Devereaux family's secure retreat. Forested mountains surrounded the dark blue water, while stone walls and glass towers rose above the shoreline like a fortress built to survive war. Avery traveled there with Mason and federal investigators she had contacted in secret. She refused to summon the Devereaux soldiers, still waiting for her orders. Using them would mean repeating Ronan's belief that power could solve every problem if enough fear supported it. Inside the estate, Damon held Ronan under guard and demanded that Avery return control of the companies to him. He believed her love would make her surrender everything. Ronan understood that Damon had underestimated her. Avery appeared willing to negotiate, but she used the delay to release evidence through several protected channels. Investigators and independent journalists received records connecting Damon and Celeste Ronan's father's murder, political bribery, financial crimes, the casino conspiracy, and the attack on Avery's wedding night. Before Damon realized what she had done, Celeste arrived with her own security team. She had never intended to rescue either brother. She planned to remove them both, regain control, and blame the violence on a final struggle between Ronan and Damon. Damon finally understood that his alliance with Celeste had never made him her equal. To her, he had always been another disposable heir. Mason disabled the island's communications and automated security systems without endangering the estate staff. Federal agents moved quietly toward the main building while Avery reached the room where Ronan was being held. She freed him before Celeste's men could relocate him. During the confrontation, Ronan had an opportunity to kill Damon. Years of grief, betrayal, and rage stood behind that single decision. He chose not to continue the family cycle. Federal agents arrested Damon and Celeste as the evidence became public. Their political protection collapsed within hours. Ronan then accepted responsibility for the crimes committed after his return to the organization. Avery refused to hide his actions or use her authority to protect him from legal consequences. The surviving Devereaux leaders asked her to remain in control. She rejected the criminal empire. However, Avery kept temporary authority long enough to dismantle it without creating another violent struggle. Legitimate companies were separated from illegal operations. Criminal records were transferred to investigators, and recovered money was redirected toward victims, employees, and communities damaged by the organization. Ronan watched Avery destroy the throne he had once believed he needed to reclaim. She had saved him without becoming the ruler his world demanded. Her love protected him without claiming ownership over his future or excusing his choices. After the empire collapsed, Ronan placed their original wedding ring in Avery's hand and revealed that one final betrayal still remained between them. Ronan had vanished as Avery's husband and returned as an Underworld king, but he could only ask for her forgiveness after losing everything that once made him powerful. The final secret reached deeper than the wedding. Before meeting Avery, Ronan had researched the Monroe family because Victoria Monroe's investment firm unknowingly managed several accounts connected to the Devereaux organization. Ronan originally approached Avery, hoping to gain access to information that could help him trace those funds. Their first meeting had not been an accident. His feelings became genuine, but the relationship had begun as another calculation. For Avery, that truth destroyed the last memory she believed remained untouched. Their courtship, engagement, and marriage had all grown from a decision Ronan made before she understood who he was. He did not defend himself. He accepted that love discovered through deception could not excuse the motive that created the opportunity. He returned the wedding ring to Avery without asking her to wear it again. Ronan cooperated with federal investigators and accepted responsibility for the crimes committed after he returned to the Devereaux organization. Because he helped dismantle the empire, exposed political corruption, and provided evidence against Celeste and Damon, he received a reduced but meaningful sentence. Avery legally ended their marriage. She refused to build her future around waiting for a man who had repeatedly chosen strategy over honesty. Over the following years, she expanded her travel photography company. Her work carried her through river communities, desert towns, redwood forests, mountain settlements, and coastal neighborhoods damaged by Devereaux operations. Using recovered assets, Avery established programs for displaced families, exploited workers, and victims of organized crime. Ronan served his sentence without wealth, influence, or special protection. After his release, he made no attempt to reclaim his fortune or former authority. He began working with legal organizations investigating financial crime, corruption, and trafficking networks. Avery observed him from a distance. His actions remained consistent when no reward was promised and no audience was present. He no longer treated protection as control or silence as sacrifice. Their relationship resumed slowly. They met occasionally in public places, maintained separate lives, and rebuilt trust through honesty rather than dramatic promises. Ronan learned that loving Avery meant respecting her right to refuse him. Avery learned that forgiveness could exist without erasing accountability. Years later, they met in a peaceful oceanfront garden on the coast of Maine. Summer sunlight moved across the water. Flowers covered the stone paths, and no guards, politicians, contracts, or criminal leaders surrounded them. Ronan brought the original wedding ring, but kept it in his open hand. He did not place it on Avery's finger. The choice remained hers. Their second ceremony was small, private, and free from strategy. Avery returned to him not because he had rebuilt his kingdom, but because he had learned to live without one. She had not found peace when she discovered Ronan ruling the Underworld. She found it only after exposing his betrayals, dismantling his empire, and making him return with nothing to offer except the truth. He vanished on their wedding night to protect an empire, but he returned years later after learning that Avery's love was never a kingdom he had the right to rule. Word count, 579 words.